Welcome to American Exceptionalism on New Right Network with your hosts, Kevin Fobbs and Susan Swift. Get ready to transform your life and have the doors of make-believe media blown away with an hour packed with American Exceptionalism, founded by faith and fire, as we counter liberal political persecution and preach the political gospel while we explore the coming American resurrection. Your voices will be heard. Silence is betrayal. Welcome to American Exceptionalism, and we're going to tackle a topic that I think will frighten you, and it should actually frighten you, because if you care about this court, my friends, you really want to know what will happen, and especially if the president has a second pick or third pick, actually. Some are calling the Gorsuch actually something that was sort of like a given. So in effect, they're looking at past Kavanaugh as he's the second, but he's really the some people in terms of actually trying to pack the court with the conservative or conservatives who will change the course of the court. But the question, I guess, is for us, I think, is that will it really change with the third, the appointment by the president, and more importantly, will he pick a woman? And if so, why would he pick a woman? So, Susan, do you think that? Yeah.
We rule the world. Come on, you know this, right? You already know this. We run the place.
Well, why would the president select a woman, Susan, for the next spot?
Because now after the whole Kavanaugh thing, white conservative men are, of course, persona non grata. They're under attack and assault, and so he is now going to be able. Trump's finally going to get to pivot and shift. He doesn't have to give a hat tip now to the old guard, the establishment. He can go with someone on his list that right. might represent something a real true shift. I know that one of the women on his list is Amy Coney Barrett, and I believe she's actually written some material that indicates that yes, she would overturn Roe versus Wade, and that's much more showing of your cards than say Kavanaugh or in Gorsuch and things like that. So perhaps these women on Trump's short list for the Supreme Court are more likely to shift the court in a conservative manner. Not that Roe versus Wade is the only issue. It's not. No. It is very, very important. But to have a court that is not an activist court. An activist court is one that rewrites the laws and kind of bails out the legislatures and kind of fixes everything, but without being elected. And that's right. The danger, I think, to our Constitution. You can't have a court that's an activist court. That's why you got a legislature. That's how we, the people, become informed about our law. The legislature passes some wacky law, and the court enforces it conservatively, meaning very, it's called strict constructionism, which is to strictly construe it according to the words in the law. And so they don't rewrite it and reach beyond what the actual words were to reinvent it. Now, that's how the left has been winning a lot of things. They've been relying on the appellate benches for years to do their dirty work. And now that we have a Supreme Court that is probably definitely more conservative and less activist, that's why they are literally screaming and clanging at the Supreme Court doors, because they know that that's their power. And so yes, now for Trump to now with the third time's a charm to be able to say, you know what, now we're going to have six conservative judges, and one, all young and living a long time, especially a woman, that'll send a huge message to the left, and it will also take away one more of their little arguing points, which is that Trump's a misogynist and he hates women and he's trying to oppress women.
But would it make a difference to Democrats on the Judiciary Committee if
no,
Trump
absolutely not? The women are going to be a worse threat. Just like I really believe that the left sees conservative women as a greater threat than conservative men, because we all know conservative men just kind of do what the conservative women want, right? Who's raising these kids? Who are the women behind the men, and who are the women out in society raising and the new generation? It's conservative women. We have a tremendous amount of power, and they fear that kind of power, especially when we as women come together and say, well, we have certain moral values that we insist upon, and we will actually vote those moral values. I think that was one of the issues that faced Trump and Hillary. I think a lot of white women didn't like Hillary Clinton. You know, they couldn't vote for Hillary, so they said, okay, I'll go ahead and vote for Trump. And so that kind of swing, we have tremendous power, and we're raising the next generation, and we're the ones who you can't we don't just go along, we don't just vote the way our husbands vote, you know. Most we're the ones, honey, don't worry, I'll take care of your vote, give me your ballot, I'll just take care of it, I'll go down there. We run our homes, I think we run the country. And I think men are happy to have us there as partners helping us do that. And I don't think women finally have perceived us as the threat that we are.
If you are on the Education Committee, you're on the other side in terms of the Democrats, would that be the major reason why you would say, we're going to fight even, not just fight even harder, we're going to make certain that the 6 women or 5 women that the president has nominated, we are going to look up every single little digit of information that we can find on the women, because if you're saying it's true, then we already know that those 6 women or 5 women have already examined, re-examined. They have a litany of what.
In the annual type exam that women undergo, let me tell you what, it's going to be thorough.
So, and you know, and if that's the case, then what are some of the lessons? I mean, we know, again, I've been in politics for a long, long time. I do that research. This is opposition research on steroids. So the question then is, what lessons should Trump, his advisors, the Judiciary Committee members learn from the Kavanaugh experience to make certain that this next person, being a woman, will not have to, they will undergo it. We know that's just a given fact. But how do you prepare against that in terms of the lessons learned by the administration?
Well, you got to go back to the yearbooks and expunge them all. you got to go all the way back to when you were 8 years old. You know, you had a little dolly, and you have to make sure that, you know, that she also had like a G.I. Joe character. I don't know what you do. You can't. How can you whitewash history? They're going to dig back. The gloves are going to come off. Usually, it's fair to kind of ask questions. I don't know why it's fair, but it is. They can suggest to men, you know, about, well, you had a beer, and maybe you were untoward toward the gentler sex. They can you know, do that with a man, but they're going to absolutely viciously attack a woman. I won't be surprised if they start having insinuations of, well, were you a virgin when you got married? You know, I mean, they're going to play on the so-called conservative values of, you know, chastity and virginity and all of those, you know, 1950s type, you know, things that they think that we exclusively stand for, and they're going to impugn people like that. And I think, like in the case of Amy Coney Barrett, she is obviously pro-life. She is a mother of 7. So I've been called this. I have 7. She's a breeder. She is not conscious of her carbon footprint and the dangers that she is doing to the environment. Right? She's having too many children. She's going to be attacked for maybe, I mean, it could be as mean as, well, do you really think that someone with as many children as you have could really do an adequate job on the Supreme Court? You might not have the, you know, the mental energy and stamina when, I mean, you are raising children, are you not? I mean, there's that double standard that women in the workplace. I mean, if people ask me what I do, and I'm raising 7 kids, and they, you know, they'll say, well, but you know, what else do you do? What do you do? As though I have to be doing, to have value, you have to also have a full-time. It is not enough to be raising children. That is somehow not good enough. And it's also frowned upon, because if you're raising too many children, that's more than your fair share. So they may go after her that way. Who knows? They may go all the way back to, you know, was she in a sorority? You know, hey, we all know about those sorority girls, right? Eye roll. They will, I don't think, unturned on any of these. They're going to go back to what were the clubs that you were in? Were you in Girl Scouts? Did you sell enough cookies? And why were you selling cookies? Aren't aren't you gender biased? I mean, they're going to do everything they can, because again, the left's qualifications for office have nothing to do with your past record, where you went to school, who you knew, or what you believed, or how hard you worked, or any of the work quality. That had nothing to do with it. The only qualification that liberals care about is your ideology. Will you empower the left? Are you a card-carrying member of the Democrat National Committee, basically? If you will help the left in its march toward globalism and controlling people and destroying the Constitution, that's all the qualifications they need. And if you won't, then we will pick apart every part of your life, down to your sex life in the bedroom. I wouldn't even be surprised if they ask her about her views on artificial birth control.
Right. Yeah, it'll
be shocking. I think it'll be shocking to see what they do. And I would love to see, wouldn't it be funny to have Feinstein or another, maybe Kamala Harris going after somebody like Amy Coney Barrett and saying, well, you're Catholic, right? And Catholics don't believe, if you're truly Catholic, you don't believe in artificial means of birth control. Isn't that correct, Judge Barrett? And then Judge Barrett will have to say, well, you know what, my religious views are not on trial here. And they'll say, oh, but yes, they are. Oh, yes, they are. Because I'm very concerned that you would deny a woman's right to choose and a woman's right to use birth control. Isn't that what you're going to do? You're already a sworn member of the Catholic cult, right? Why would we believe that you as a Catholic wouldn't impose your values on all of the Protestants and Muslims and immigrants of our nation? You see what I'm saying? They go after on a religious
test. Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll be a religious test, and they're going to take your private convictions, and they're going to absolutely assume that those convictions will dictate all of your judicial opinions, which isn't true and it isn't fair, but it won't matter, because what they're going to want to do, it's going to be another one of these media freak shows. That's what this is going to be, to get everybody riled up and to think that somehow this woman is either too loose or too strict, that she will be trying to control you and prevent you from enjoying your life. From whether it's and I just see it over and over again on a sexual level, that you're going to take away my rights to birth control. You're going to take away my rights to you're going to enforce marriage and prevent me from marrying my girlfriend, something like that. They're going to go after them on moral points, attacking their religion, and it's going to be unseemly and it's going to be ugly. And I think just as a lot of men saw what happened to Kavanaugh, and they started at a certain point identifying, and they said, gee, that could be me. I had a beer in high school. Gee, that could be me. I think women will see that same thing. I think they were disgusted with the Kavanaugh hearings. And I think women, if the left does go after, a Trump nominee who's a woman and does that, white women, black women, every type of woman can maybe see in that, wow, this is an attack on individual personal assaults. This is not who I am, and I could be next, and I don't like people who do that. So they're going to have to really go carefully with it, because it can just blow up on them. I hope it does blow up on them if they do.
Now the president has already released that list, but should he take the next step? Now the president's always unpredictable. We know he is, because that's just who he is. So should he?
He's just laying out. Look, he promised he was going to do some things, and he's just checking them off the list. I don't think he's very unpredictable. He's going to get the wall built. That's the next thing. It's going to happen before 2020. It's going to happen.
Well, the question, I guess, for example, in one of the comments that was made recently by the resignation of the UN secretary or ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, that this was the best kept secret because it was between two people, the president
it wasn't
and Nikki
leaked.
Haley. It wasn't leaked.
It wasn't leaked.
For 6 months, it wasn't leaked. So the question, I guess, is what happens? Should the president just wait until the next one, or should we go on the offense and assume that the president's going to have a person who's a woman, and then begin to defend and build up, kind of like a forward action before the president even makes it, before there's even an opening on the Supreme Court? Should we be doing that ourselves?
Well, I think we have to look. The left has already thrown down the gauntlet. when we saw the article that came out recently in the Daily Caller with Linda Sarsour basically attacking women who don't think the way that they're supposed to, right? Liberal writers are attacking women who are conservative and who don't think the way that liberal women ought to. Yeah. That divide is already happening, whether it's the Kavanaugh watershed, whatever you want to call it. But we are not in Kansas anymore, and they've already thrown down the gauntlet. They've said, okay, if you're a woman and you are not a rabid, liberal, card-carrying, harpy woman, and you believe that babies should be born alive, we've got a problem with you, and you are not in our tribe. You are not in our political tribe, and we will destroy you. That's what the left is about now, is tribalism and personal destruction. They don't want to just disagree. They don't want to just win an argument. They want to destroy you. They want to destroy you personally as a woman. They're coming for the women now. They've already come for the men. It didn't work, but they've already got a lot of men on the defensive saying, okay, I know to be quiet at work. I don't talk about it. I just keep my head down and I don't say anything. They've already got the men cowed. They're now trying to muzzle the women. And that's where we have to stand up, and we can't. First of all, I think as women, we have to deny our men. And of course they speak for us, and we want them to speak their own mind. And they have every right to speak. We have to defend their right before we lose ours. That's what's happening here. They're trying to muzzle all conservatives, but they're doing it one group at a time, because that's the most effective way. That's the most effective way to win. We can't do it. We have to start speaking up now and explain to the liberals that no, actually, our values, our conservative values, are American values, and your values are Marxist. You're demo-Nazis. That's what you are. You guys don't have the values that we embrace. Your values are from the old world of European kings and queens who would control us and tax us without representation and dictate to us. Those are the old values. Those are liberal values. Those aren't our values. We are the radical individualism people. We're the ones that believe in freedom of real choice, freedom of speech, freedom of all of those things. It's the Democrats, the demo-Nazis, as you've called them, Kevin. Those are the ones, they're the throwbacks. They're trying to go back to kings and queens and pharaohs and of old in one global order, and we'll take care of you cradle to grave with health care. That's their mentality. That's not American value. That's not American ideology. That is not American exceptionalism. And we have to start standing up and saying it right now and labeling it for what it is. It's Nazism. It is Marxism. It's fascism. That's who they are.
And speaking of American exceptionalism, the person has 6 women that he's going to be taking a look at the next time around. So we're just going to make the assumption it's going to be a woman. Amy Coney Barrett, and that's someone who was the front runner last time when Kavanaugh was being selected by the president. She's 46 years old, and she was confirmed to the Senate in 2017. Vote was 55-43. She now sits on the 7th U.S. Circuit of Appeals, and she is Catholic, just like you are. And she used to be a law professor at the University of Notre Dame. Now, why do you feel that she, evidently the president felt very closely about, she came so close to that, to being selected. Why is she the conservative's choice of the 6 people? We're going to go through all of them that should get that next nomination by the president.
I know this one. I actually know why this one. Okay. The rest I'm not as familiar with, but this one I do. She was not only a law professor at University of Notre Dame, she was also, I believe, a law student there, I believe. And what a lot of people don't understand about Notre Dame, the university itself is kind of wishy-washy. It's every university, really a staunchly conservative city. The law school, which is where she went to school, Notre Dame law, that is conservative. That is the true blue, have drunk the Kool-Aid. She is pro-life. She will advance that type of a vision on the court. That's why she's a threat. And her education and her formation, a lot of people, social media, they'll say, well, she's coming from Notre Dame. I don't trust her. She's not going to be conservative enough. It's not that she's from University of Notre Dame. She's from the law school, and that is a much different animal. It's much more conservative. That gives me great assurance that she would be a very conservative judge. And I think that I've heard that she's written certain articles expressing how she would be able to overturn Roe versus Wade, which I think, I mean, hey, Plessy versus Ferguson. Sometimes the Supreme Court gets it wrong, and there's a duty, I believe, to correct the law when it's wrong. So, otherwise, if precedent were always controlling forever and ever, we would still have slavery. So, you can't say precedent, always precedent. You can't do that, because then it would deny so many people their rights. So there's a way to roll back the murder of 55 million unborn children. And I believe that Barrett would be one of the ones who would do it. Although, with 6-3, she wouldn't be the swing. She wouldn't be necessary, because I think we already have the 5 already on the court necessary to do it. They would just fear her, because I think she would apply her conservative values on the court. And I think that's
this is what she said in a 2013 law review article. She said that, quote, "I tend to agree with those who say that a justice's duty is to the Constitution, and that it is thus more legitimate for her best understanding of the Constitution rather than a precedent she thinks clearly in conflict with it." So again, and actually in talking and discussing Roe v. Wade, and the question, I guess, that she would probably tackle is whether or not, because the Supreme Court did not tackle whether or not there was a legitimacy of the unborn child's legitimacy to be born. It was more of the woman's right, because that was not before the court. So, so that she could. It's going to be
right to life. It's going to be the right to life of the unborn.
Of the unborn, and the constitutional protection, the due process constitutional protection that unborn child is entitled to. And when those two conflict, and I think that's where she and Kavanaugh and Roberts and the others, Gorsuch too, Clarence Thomas, and Alito will look at the conflict. When there's a conflict between a person who is alive and a person who is alive in the womb, does that individual have the constitutional right? And should that supersede a person's right to murder? The answer is obvious.
There is no right to murder. That is what's wrong with Roe versus Wade. It enshrines in law the right to murder, and that is the problem. See, that is the quintessential problem, and that's why life trumps inconvenience. The only time murder or killing is legalized is when you are using deadly force to combat deadly force. When you are being attacked and someone's using deadly force against you or another, then you can use up to and including deadly force to protect life. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
We can protect life by using deadly force, but here with abortion, you're not protecting life. You're just extinguishing one. And we are excluding, of course, from the discussion anything like ectopic pregnancies or when they have preeclampsia, where the blood pressure is so high that the woman, is probably going to have a stroke and die. There are certain medical conditions that we're not even discussing here. We're talking about the vast majority, 98% of them, where it's really a matter of convenience or fear. I just don't want to have this baby right now. And it's the killing of an innocent person. And that cannot be justified. It just isn't. It is not justified under our Judeo-Christian principles that serve as the foundation for our Constitution. And it's right there. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And that trumps convenience, and that trumps Roe versus Wade. And that's why the liberals hate conservative judges, because we follow the Constitution.
Right. And that particular issue, I think it's the issue that the overturning, it's not overturning Roe v. Wade, it is clarifying Roe v. Wade. Now, there's several more actually. Britt Grant, she is a 40-year-old justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. That's where she is right now. She's the youngest, and would be the youngest.
She could serve for 45 years. She could tap out, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Can you imagine a justice 45 years on the court? That's generations. Yeah,
exactly. So she's on that short list. Allison Eade, she's 53, was confirmed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, replacing Neil Gorsuch after he became U.S. Supreme Court Justice. And now she was opposed by the AFL-CIO and the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. So we know that she's solid.
That means she's good. That
means she's good.
Look at your enemies, and then you know. So yeah, if the AFL-CIO doesn't like you, that means you're just awesome. You're solid.
And we also have, let's see, we have Margaret Ryan. She's a 54-year-old judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals, and for the Armed Forces. So she was nominated by George W. and confirmed to the Senate in 2006. The vote was unanimous, but I can assure you.
That was back in the day.
That was back in the day.
We're not having unanimous votes anymore.
Yeah, not going to happen.
You know what? I bet you it's not even in the news. I'll bet you this at all, that I would bet that the confirmation of judges for the circuit courts is no longer unanimous. I'll bet you that the Democrats are probably fighting them over and over
and district courts too, and district courts.
I'll bet.
Right. And she's a Marine.
Ooh, I like it. A woman Marine on the bench, wouldn't that just?
Oh my goodness, that would be so cool. Now we have Joan Larson. She's 49, law professor at the University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And she currently serves on the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. I should know her, actually.
You're on the show.
Yeah. She was nominated by Trump in the spring of 2017, confirmed the Senate 60-38.
There you go. Not unanimous. Yep.
Yeah, not unanimous. And she clerked for Justice Anton Scalia.
Yay.
And she was also Deputy Assistant Attorney General during the administration of George W. Bush. So she's a cool person, too. Mm-hmm. Go Michigan. Next one, Diane Sykes. She's 60, serves on the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, nominated by George W., confirmed by the Senate 2004. Now, some Trump supporters, Susan, don't like her because, and they actually thought she should be removed from that list entirely, especially from the short list, because she engaged in 2 pro-choice rulings, striking down an Indiana law that defunded Planned Parenthood in 2012 and sentencing anti-abortion activists to 60 days in jail in 1993. So,
well, wait. I mean, the way that sounds, it sounds like she struck down a law that defunded, that took away money from Planned Parenthood and sentenced these activists to jail. That would make her a liberal darling.
That would, you would think, but because she was nominated by a Republican president, and she's probably looking at, she's the last one on the list, looking at some of the others.
So people are saying, gee, she shouldn't be on the list because by striking down that law, she isn't conservative enough, in other words. Exactly. That people are saying, take her off the list because she's not good enough.
Right.
Now, you see, I mean, the frustrating thing is you'd have to go back and read
the opinion.
You have to read it and say, well, why? Because, okay, whether it's you strike it down or not, I'm having a day. Whether it's the reasons on which you strike it down. I don't think that Planned Parenthood should be getting any federal taxpayer dollars, just on principle. Right. Well, so if she strikes it down on that ground, maybe that's good or bad, but you have to look at why. So I think you'd have to say, you have to look at the decision and explore the reasons why she struck it down. But maybe that was a litmus test for people. Maybe that was something that they look at it. And I guess in this new age of the post-Kavanaugh age, we have to look at every decision and say, all right, what were the reasons for what she was doing? This is my day. It's blowing up. And why was she voting that way? And maybe that's not good enough. If we're going to go to ideology, if we're really looking for the ideology of the liberal versus conservative, then we have to test that. And if that's what we've come to, then ideology is going to matter. Everything is going to matter. Every decision you make and you're going to freeze the court up. The court's not going to be able to do anything without checking their political.
See, I think we need to look at opinions, because I think if we're putting judges on Court of Appeals, on the district courts, and especially on the Supreme Court, we got to look at their opinions. And the ideology may follow, but I'm more concerned about how they're going to rule. I'm more concerned about what process they use in terms of arriving at their decision, so that we know that will give us, I think, more reliance on what they will possibly do on the high court, whether or in an appeals court or even a district court, than whether or not their quote public ideology.
Yeah, but you're reasonable. You and I are reasonable people, and
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I just would want to see. I'm happy with a justice who would look at things and reasonably go through some things and say, all right, this is the way I weigh it. I mean, that some people might not like me saying it, but Ginsburg is very, very qualified. I don't agree with her ideology on some issues, but she's eminently qualified. I would not, I'll never have this, but even if I were on the Senate, I couldn't vote not to confirm her because she is qualified. I would just say, okay, she's nominated and the president gets his nomination. I wouldn't oppose it, but I don't like her ideology. But you see, we're now in a post-Kavanaugh world. People are voting ideology. And so if we are to win the battle for America, the senators are going to have to vote ideology, not just what the Democrats are doing is your only qualification is whether or not you are supporting the liberal agenda. That is it. So I mean, if I dressed up as a liberal and just started, screaming about, global warming and abortion rights and all of that, I could qualify as a judge for a Democrat, just so long as I have all the right, ideological points. You
Right.
see, that doesn't make me qualified to be a judge, but to the Democrats it does. I hope we don't descend to that point. I hope that I hope we can keep our country together and still make value judgments based on, well, is somebody really truly qualified, and not have to do this, basically look under their skirts, for lack of a better word. I know that's kind of a triggering kind of a thing, but hey, that's the world we're in right now. Is are you really, really with us or against us? And I guess we're at that point. I think we're going to have to start winning battles based on our values and our ideology, because the liberals are trying to take away, they're trying to transform America and take away the values that formed this country and claim new values. And if that's the case, then I guess we are going to have to go to be values voters, and we're going to have to be values justices, and everything's going to come down to that. And that's regrettable, but it's the battle that they chose. They're choosing the battleground. Right. We have to meet them on the battleground.
Right, and it's a war now. It's not just a comfortable discussion. It's a war. And as President Roosevelt said, we have to enter the arena. And the arena is being defined. And we define that way. We have to go to war in that arena and fight in the way that we're being attacked. We just can't. This is not a gentleman's agreement anymore. There's no handshake involved. No. It's just war.
Women fight for keeps. We don't have gentleman agreement. And that's why I think the left is targeting women, because they know we fight for keeps. We take it personally. We do. That women tend to take things personally. You guys know this, right? I mean, come on. You're married. It's personal. When she says, what do you think? Do you think this shirt makes me look too fat? And you say, that's enough. That's enough. You waited too long. That was it. It's personal now. Right? I mean, we take it personally. Because we're women, and because that's the way it is. And it's time to engage. It is not a gentleman's world anymore. And yes, it's personal, and that's why women are superior foes in battle. And I think that's why the left is trying to circle around right now and cut off white women and trying to shame us and shun us. That's the shunning, the great shunning that's happening. And I don't know if it's going to work, because we've seen they'll attack our men just for being men, just for for having a beer. That's enough. For throwing ice, that's enough. And that's not reasonable. And you can't attack my son like that. You can't attack my husband. You can't attack my friend at the grocery store. You can't attack my uncles. That's not okay anymore. So I hope enough women realize what the left is trying to do. They're trying to separate us. And I hope. Do you think
then okay, let's take it one step further, because let's just say that let's say that she becomes the nominee.
Yeah.
Ginsburg just leaves however she leaves. Do you believe that women will react negatively when they see another woman who's a justice or a judge at the point in terms of the hearing being attacked?
That's the danger. They're going to have to go about it very, very cleverly, and I think it's our job to figure out how they're going to do it. They're going to such a way that, because that's, you can't hit the girl. You can't hit the girl. And if you do, maybe it will offend. No, it'll offend women. It'll offend the men too.
Well, she'll use, you know what? Well, they'll probably use other women like Kamala Harris and so on.
And they're going to do it in such a fashion so that it'll really be a cat fight. That's what's going to be the next one. It's not going to be hearings, a cat fight. And the way that we win that is by the nominee remaining, I dare not use the word ladylike, but composed and polite,
professional,
but firm and professional, and explaining that no, this is what I said, and this is how I'm going to do it. And it's going to have to. It'll depend on hinge, vociferous the other side themselves. I think it went over the top with Kavanaugh when we had somebody coming up and I was really all that. That was just that wasn't. You look and you go, gosh, I know you're a psychology teacher, but really, don't you need some help? She didn't comport herself very well. And then following that, it was wave after wave of these absolutely insane accusations, up to and including rape train with drugs. I mean, that's when we go, okay, we're done. That when a 2-year-old starts throwing a tantrum, what do? You walk away and let him have the tantrum. Say, go ahead, you won't hurt yourself. You're already on the floor. It's all right. Just hit the floor as hard as you can. We'll come back later. What do you do with a 2-year-old tantrum? You just let them have it. That's it. They're safe in their crib. Or you put them in their crib and you say, when you're all tired out and have your nap, you come back out. That's what, I mean, if the left is going to have to really up its game, and they're going to have to figure out ways to attack someone based on what? Their gender and their religion. You're going to go there? Really? And how many children you're going to have? They're going to dig for something. I don't know what would be their path, but they'll go way back, and they'll have to do it delicately.
Well, I consider the senator from Hawaii, the female, who
sit down and shut up. That one.
Yeah, that one. I think that they're going to lead with her because she's the one that's most offensive, and the one that they can use as their attack dog. She's pretty brainless, actually, but they'll use her anyway. And then they'll use Kamala Harris because she was a former prosecutor, and so she's going to come in.
Slept away to the top. I mean, talk about using your gender to get where she is. I mean, with Brown and all that. I mean, she's got a whole history. She slept her way to the top. Really, just
really, because I don't know much about her.
Yeah.
I just know that she's
an operative. It takes on a whole new meaning with that woman.
Yeah, and she's from California, right?
Yes, she is. And we're proud.
Yeah. And not in a good way.
But yeah, they'll go after her. That, and well, Feinstein will hopefully not be reelected, but who knows? Maybe she will. Who knows?
Well, that election's pretty close too.
Her. It'll be the Amazons. It'll be Amazons going against her.
What's interesting in terms of the Feinstein is that the Democrats, her opponent, is angry because she withheld the information, and that obviously that's the letter, and he's using that politically, which I find pretty weird, actually, that he would be against.
Theater. She's not mad. She's not mad at all. She probably don't show it to me yet. I can't give it to me in July. I don't want it yet. That's all kabuki theater. This was all absolutely orchestrated, just like the whole. I think the vote and the way that it didn't change one vote, the 50-48 Kavanaugh vote. It didn't change one vote. Everybody just needed to posture around and figure out how that they could have their fig leaf to vote the way that they were going to. That included Susan Collins, and that's why she had a master speechwriter. Maybe it was her, I don't know, but whoever did, it was fabulous, and that's why she delivered it masterfully. She did a great job, and it was all kabuki theater. It didn't change a thing. 3 weeks of kabuki theater. All it did was destroy America and create the Kavanaugh watershed, the divide, the great shunning of values. That's what this did. They used it as a reason to do it, and we saw that with Schumer getting up right before the vote to come out and say, if you were concerned about this and if you were concerned about that, vote, 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 vote. This is all it was. This was 3 weeks of kabuki theater to turn out the Democrat vote because they are worried that they're not going to be getting their wave, and I think they've overplayed their hand, and the red wave may turn out to be a tsunamis because now we know for us. They're personally, women are next. And so
here's the Senator Mazie Hirono. She's the Democrat from Hawaii. Yeah, she's the one who they're going to use. Mark my words.
Miss
Mazie. Driving Miss Mazie.
I think that'll insult her if we say it that way. I deserve more respect. You should call me Senator. I'll call her Senatrix. Senatrix, maybe.
Someone had asked, actually, Barrett last year and said, do you think you were appointed by the president because of your position on abortion? And Barrett said, did not know what those involved in the selection process may or may not have thought about how I would resolve cases involving abortion. Why? Because the president said he would not ask his appointees to the bench what they thought about any particular issue. He just wanted to make certain they were qualified. And of course, Maisie.
Dare I say it's mighty white of him?
Yeah, there you say.
That's what a president's supposed to do. But that's not good enough for the Democrats, because that's not what they do. They want ideologues.
No, they want ideologues. And driving Miss Maisie just wanted to make certain that she could vote against her, which is what she was going to do anyway. But she wanted to put on the record. Why? Because Maisie was thinking ahead of the circuit court. She was thinking Supreme Court. That's what we have to understand, that these Democrats are not just, when you have a circuit court appointed by the president for the federal circuit court or for the appeals court, the Democrats are not thinking about that. They're thinking about what happens when that person is nominated to the Supreme Court or to the appeals court, and they want to catch them in the perjury, or her in a perjury trap. That's the reality of that. So just tell the truth. That's all I'm going to say.
Tell the truth. Yep.
On that one.
Truth always sells.
Yeah. This is who she says that this is her opinion on gay marriage. We're talking about Barrett now. She told the Judiciary Committee when she was being confirmed last year, 2017, that the church's view is irrelevant to the legal question of the right of same-sex couples to marry. And her quote was, "In the context of same-sex marriages and in any context, my religious beliefs really would not bear on that at all. I think one of the great traditions in this country is that judges participate in the law, participate in the decision of cases, and rule even when they disagree with the outcome." That is what defines a real judge.
Yes.
Not ruling from, not making law from the bench, but ruling based upon the law, which drove Miss Maisie crazy.
Yeah. And you know, one other little final quote, because I know I at the top I was kind of playing, you know, devil's advocate against Catholic and things. But you know what? My faith informs me that I cannot push somebody to believe the way I want to believe. I want them to believe. That is not that's not how you convert somebody. That's not how you do anything. You do it out of love, and you can persuade people, but you cannot force your views on others. That you cannot do. And that's why someone who is Catholic should be a very good judge, because if they are truly you have to believe that everything must be voluntary. That's why charity is superior to governmentally forced contributions. Charity comes from the heart. It is motivated by, you know, love for the other person, but it's spontaneous. And that's why we should make sure that charitable organizations can do as much good as they want. And that's why socialism is so bad, because socialism is the government forcing you to be charitable.
Right.
That's just compelling, and that's wrong. That's why you want someone with religious sensibilities to say, well, I know what I believe, but I can't force my belief on others, because to do so violates their own God-given right to believe and their free will. And the violation of free will is that's the touchstone of being a good judge.
Right, exactly. And you know you know, as we come to the end, one of the things I want to read from what she said last year about during her confirmation hearing in terms of Judge Barrett. She told the Senate Judiciary Committee about why an appellate judge must be brave, and that would, I think, also apply to Judge Kavanaugh and other justices on the Supreme Court. And she said that as an example of taking the consequences, of dealing with the consequences of an unpopular ruling, she cited Judge John Marshall Harlan's dissent in Plessy versus Ferguson, which was decided in 1896, which was, most people know it as a separate but equal decision. which upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation in public facilities. Harlan, the lone dissenter, said the Louisiana law that was upheld was hostile to both the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. And she noted that it took more than 50 years for Harlan's view to prevail in the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision. But again, hostile to the spirit and letter of the Constitution.
There you go. And that's the basis, that right there. Hostile to the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
And that is why when you think about what will happen should Donald Trump, the president, get a new appointee to the Supreme Court, why that's important. Because the spirit and letter of the Constitution to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for an unborn child. And that's so we're all on life watch. I'll just count that one. We are on life watch right now for the next appointee to the Supreme Court. And in most cases, that probably, if I were a betting person, I'd say that it's a woman, as Susan has said. I think so too. I think so too. So these are the judges that the president will be considering when the next appointment comes to the Supreme Court. And there, again, it's probably a 99-to-1 chance that it'll happen as there'll be a woman. So just mark your calendar and then revise. We'll be going over this over and over and over again, obviously, as we get closer to that. It may happen. You never know with Ruth Bader. You never know. She may be there for the. You never know.
God's that way. You never know.
Yeah, but we do know one thing, that God's time and the president's election. So again, thank you for joining us on American Exceptionalism. And this is something that will, I think, enlighten most of you who don't know these judges, never heard of the judges. But I think that after this show, you will understand that the president has some wonderful choices that he can make, and especially one in particular that we really believe will be the best one for the president in terms of the Supreme Court. But most important, as we go forth to the election, midterms, you got to vote. You got to make certain that the president has the ammunition that he needs in the Senate and the protection that he needs and requires in the House, so that Democrats will not, how can I put it?
Regain power like that? Yeah.
Like that.
Ever. ever.
What Susan said. Thanks again for joining us on American Exceptionalism. Take care, and God bless.
God bless America.
And God bless America. Bye-bye.